And therefore, because of mistaken speculation, everything appears to them to be relative, meaning everything is temporary. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Absolute Truth, the Personality Godhead, is one, and He is spread everywhere by His impersonal feature. This is clearly expressed in Bhagavad Gita. Lord Krishna says, everything that is experienced is but an expansion of my energy. Everything is sustained by him, but that does not mean that he is everything. Sense perceptions, such as oral perception of the sound of a drum, visual perception of a beautiful woman, or perception of the delicious taste of a milk preparation by the tongue, all come through different senses and are therefore differently understood. Therefore, sensory knowledge is divided in different categories, although actually everything is one as a manifestation of the energy of the Supreme Lord. Similarly, the energies of fire are heat and illumination. And by these two energies, fire can display itself in many varieties or in diversified sense perception. Mayavadi philosophers declare this diversity to be false. But Vaishnava philosophers do not accept the different manifestations as false. They accept them as non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because they are a display of his diverse energies. The philosophy that the Absolute is true and this creation is false, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, is not accepted by the Vaishnava philosophers. The example is given that although all that glitters is not gold, this does not mean that a glittering object is false. For example, an oyster shell appears to be golden. This appearance of golden hue is due only to the perception of the eyes, but that does not mean that the oyster shell is false. Similarly, by seeing the form of Lord Krishna, one cannot understand what he actually is. But this does not mean that he is false. The form of Krishna has to be understood as it is described in the books of knowledge, such as Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna, Satchit Ananda Vigraha. Krishna, the Supreme Personality Godhead, has an eternal, blissful, spiritual body. By our imperfect sense perception, we cannot understand the form of the Lord. We have to acquire knowledge about him. Therefore, it is said here, Jnanam Ekam. Bhagavad Gita confirms that they are fools who, simply upon seeing Krishna, consider him a common man. They do not know the unlimited knowledge, power, and opulence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Material sense speculation leads to the conclusion that the Supreme is formless. It is because of such mental speculation that the conditioned soul remains in ignorance under the spell of illusory energy. The Supreme Person has to be understood by the transcendental sound vibrated by him. Okay. In Bhagavad Gita, wherein he says that there is nothing superior to himself, the impersonal Brahman effulgence is resting on his personality. The purified absolute vision of Bhagavad Gita is compared to the river Ganges. Ganges water is so pure that it can purify even the asses and cows. But anyone who, disregarding the pure Ganges, wishes to be purified instead by filthy water flowing in a drain cannot be successful. Similarly, one can successfully attain pure knowledge of the Absolute only by hearing from the pure Absolute himself. In this verse, it is clearly said that those who are averse to the Supreme Personality of Godhead speculate with their imperfect senses about the nature of the Absolute Truth. The formless Brahman conception, however, can be received only by oral reception and not by personal experience. Knowledge is therefore acquired by oral reception, meaning by hearing. It is confirmed in the Vedanta Sutra, Shastra Unitvat. One has to acquire pure knowledge from the authorized scriptures. So-called speculative arguments about the absolute truth are therefore useless. The actual identity of the living entity is his consciousness, which is always present while the living entity is awake. Dreaming or deep sleep. Even in deep sleep, he can perceive by consciousness whether he is happy or distressed. Thus, when consciousness is displayed through the medium of subtle and gross material bodies, it is covered. But when consciousness is purified in Krishna consciousness, one becomes free from the entanglement of repeated birth and death. Well, that's a very significant statement. When uncontaminated pure knowledge is uncovered from the modes of material nature, the actual identity of the living entity is discovered. He is eternally a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, that's the main statement. The process of uncovering is like this. The rays of sunshine are luminous, and the sun itself is also luminous. In the presence of the sun, the rays illuminate just like the sun. But when the sunshine is covered by a spell of a cloud or by Maya, then darkness, the imperfection of perception, begins. Therefore, to get out of the entanglement of the spell of nescience or ignorance, one has to awaken his spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness in terms of the authorized scriptures. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Okay, so yeah, this is a very important statement. When uncontaminated pure knowledge is uncovered from the modes of material nature, the actual identity of the living entity is discovered. He is eternally a servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Well, you learn that in the association of devotees. You don't really not know this simply by yourself. The process of uncovering is like this. The rays of sunshine are luminous, and the sun itself is also luminous. In the presence of the sun, the rays illuminate just like the sun. But when the sunshine is covered by the spell of a cloud or by Maya, then darkness, the imperfection of perception, begins. Therefore, to get out of the entanglement of the spell of nescience or ignorance, one has to awaken his spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness in terms of the authorized scriptures. Well, this is the truth. But if you observe people, you'll see that almost everyone is covered by the spell of a cloud or Maya. And why? Because they're not Krishna conscious. They're just engaging in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. They talk a lot. They take vacations. They have cars. They have computers. But actually, they're under the spell of a cloud or Maya. Then darkness, the imperfection of perception, begins. They don't see things properly. And to get out of the spell of ignorance, one has to awaken his spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness in terms of the authorized scriptures. Well, how many people are actually reading the authorized scriptures? Very few. How many people, even though they're reading the authorized scriptures, actually understand them? Very few. And the best thing is to hear the bona fide scriptures spoken by genuine devotees and ask questions. Then you begin to understand, and the cloud of, let's say, of Maya uh, starts to go away. Therefore, to get out of the entanglement of the spell of nescience or ignorance, one has to awaken his spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness in terms of the authorized scriptures. Okay. Obviously, we are reading authorized scripture right now. It's called Srimad Bhagavatam. And we also have Bhagavad Gita, authorized scripture. But we should read it in the company of bona fide devotees. And even better, hear it from bona fide devotees. Therefore, to get out of the entanglement of the spell of ignorance, One has to awaken his spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness in terms of the authorized scriptures. Well, if you're always listening to stock market quotes every day or to mundane news, you're not going to get out of the entanglement of the spell of omniscience, ignorance. One has to awaken the spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness in terms of the authorized scriptures. That's what we're doing. We're hearing every day Srimad Bhagavatam in the morning and Bhagavad Gita in the evening. Those are authorized scriptures. Text 29. From the total energy, the Mahatattva, I have manifested the false ego, the three modes of material nature, the five material elements, the individual consciousness, the 11 senses, and the material body. Similarly, the entire universe has come from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Supreme Lord is described as Mahatpada, which means that the total material energy, known as Mahatattva, is lying at his lotus feet. The origin of the total energy of the cosmic manifestation is the Mahatattva. From the Mahatattva, all other 24 divisions have sprung, namely the 11 senses, including the mind, the five objects, the five sense objects, the five material elements, and then consciousness, intelligence, and false ego. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of the Mahatattva. Therefore, in one sense, because everything is an emanation from the Supreme Lord, there is no difference between the Lord and the cosmic manifestation. But at the same time, the cosmic manifestation is different from the Lord. The word swarat is very significant here. Swarat means independent. The Supreme Lord is independent, and the individual soul is also independent, although there is no comparison between the two qualities of independence. The living entity is minutely independent, and the Supreme Lord is fully independent. As the individual soul has a material body made of five elements and the senses, the Supreme Independent Lord similarly has the gigantic body of the universe. The individual body is temporarily the individual body is temporary. Similarly, the entire universe, which is considered to be the body of the Supreme Lord, is also temporary. And both the individual and the universal bodies are products of the Mahatattva. One has to understand the differences with intelligence. Everyone knows that his body has developed from the supreme spark. supreme spark, super soul.
Okay. It says just a spiritual spark. Oh, you have a different.
I have supreme spark.
Okay.
As the individual body develops from the individual soul, the gigantic body of the universe develops from the supreme soul. Just as individual soul has consciousness, the supreme soul is also conscious. But although there is a similarity between the consciousness of the supreme soul and the consciousness of the individual soul's consciousness is limited, whereas the consciousness of the supreme soul is unlimited. This is described in Bhagavad Gita 13.3. Chitratyam Chapimam Vidhi. The Supreme Soul is present in every field of activity. Just as the individual soul is present in the individual body. Both of them are conscious. The difference is that the individual soul is conscious of the individual body only, whereas the Supreme Soul is conscious of the total number of individual bodies. Haribol. Okay. All right, so there's something very interesting here when it says, the Supreme Personality Godhead is the cause of the Mahat Tattva. Mahat Tattva means the sum total of everything. And therefore, in one sense, because everything is an emanation from the Supreme Lord, there's no difference between the Lord and the cosmic manifestation. But at the same time, the cosmic manifestation is different from the Lord. The word swarat is very significant here. Swarat means independent. The Supreme Lord is independent, and the individual soul is also independent, although there is no comparison between the two qualities of independence. The living entity is minutely independent, and the Supreme Lord is fully independent. As the individual soul has a material body made of 5 elements and the senses, the Supreme Independent Lord similarly has the gigantic body of the universe. The individual body is temporary. Similarly, the entire universe, which is considered to be the body of the Supreme Lord, is also temporary. And both the individual and universal bodies are products of the Mahat Tattva. One has to understand the differences with intelligence. Everyone knows that his material body has developed from a spiritual spark. And similarly, the universal body has developed from the supreme spark, meaning the super soul. As the individual body develops from the individual soul, the gigantic body of the universe develops from the supreme soul. Just as the individual soul has consciousness, the supreme soul is also conscious. But although there is similarity between the consciousness of the supreme soul and the consciousness of the individual soul's consciousness is limited, whereas the consciousness of the supreme soul is unlimited. This is described in the Bhagavad Gita 13.3, Chetra Gyam Chapimam Vidhi. The super soul is present in every field of activity, just as the individual soul is present in the individual body. Both of them are conscious. The difference is that the individual soul is conscious of the individual body only, whereas the supersoul is conscious of the total number of individual bodies. Okay, text number 30. This perfect knowledge can be achieved by a person who is already engaged in devotional service with faith, steadiness, and full detachment, and who is always absorbed in thought of the Supreme. He is aloof from material association. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The atheistic mystic practitioner of yoga cannot understand perfect knowledge. Only persons who engage in the practical activities of devotional service in full Krishna consciousness can become absorbed in full samadhi. It is possible for them to see and understand the actual fact of the entire cosmic manifestation and its cause. The cause is Krishna. It is clearly stated here that this is not possible to understand for one who has not developed devotional service in full faith. The words samahitatma and samadhi are synonymous. Okay. So that means samadhi means one is in perfect or incomplete, let's say, spell of realization. That's why it says only persons who engage in the practical activities of devotional service in full Krishna consciousness can become absorbed in full samadhi. Samadhi means you are completely in knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is possible for them to see and understand the actual fact of the entire cosmic manifestation and its cause. Well, the actual fact of the entire cosmic manifestation is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he is the cause of everything. It is clearly stated here that this is not possible to understand for one who has not developed devotional service in full faith. Yeah, so what does this verse say? This perfect knowledge can be achieved by a person who is already engaged in devotional service with faith, steadiness, and full detachment, and is always absorbed in thought of the Supreme. He is aloof from material association. Well, this should be what a devotee is. That is what? Being engaged in devotional service with faith, steadiness, and full detachment, and who is always absorbed in thought of the Supreme. Then one is aloof from material association. All right, so I like these purports that are very short. They're very profound. I mean, everything's profound, but still, in a few words, they encapsulate the truth. In this purport, it says the atheistic mystic practitioner of yoga cannot understand this perfect knowledge. Only persons who engage in the practical activities of devotional service in full Krishna consciousness can become absorbed in full samadhi. When you say full samadhi, it means you're always thinking of Krishna. It is possible for him to see and understand the actual fact of the entire cosmic manifestation and its cause. While the actual fact of the entire manifestation and its cause is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is clearly stated here that this is not possible to understand for one who has not developed devotional service in full faith. Well, what is devotional service? It's when you completely surrender yourself to Krishna and engage in devotional service with faith. Okay, text 31.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah.
What does practical activities of devotional service mean, Maharaj? Practical activities, what does that mean?
Practical activities of devotional service in full Krishna consciousness. Number one is chanting Hare Krishna every day, at least 16 rounds. Number two is only eating prasadam. Number three is regularly hearing the shastras spoken by genuine devotees. Number four is Golyano Sankirtan, chanting the glories of the Lord in public. And then number five is worshiping the deity of Krishna. Number six is maintaining your faith in Krishna without any doubt in the mind. So these are some of the practical activities of devotional service in full Krishna consciousness. Huh?
It's a thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Question, Maharaj.
Yes.
In the translation, Maharaj, it says, perfect knowledge can be achieved by a person who is already engaged in devotion service with faith, steadiness, and full detachment. Maharaj, can you explain like some more detail on full detachment? Like devotee is not attached to the service. Is that the meaning? Like,
No.
Any service can be changed anytime, and devotee still.
No. Full detachment means that you're not attracted by anything in the material world. That's full detachment. You're only focused on Krishna. You're not attracted by anything else in the material world. Then you're fully detached. If you become attached to something in the material world, then you forget Krishna. So faith, steadiness, and full detachment. Okay?
What if a devotee is attached to specific service, like attached to service but a specific service? So that is called attachment, or how do we see that?
Well, if you are attached to a particular service, like being a pujari, so you do that with faith, steadiness, and full detachment means you're not engaged in any sense gratification. Right? You're every day you're worshiping the deities on time, and you have the service, your service, in your mind all the time. There's nothing else. So that's full detachment. You have Krishna in your mind all the time. And the proof is that you're engaged all the time in devotional service. You don't take any vacations. So that's full detachment. That means you're detached fully of material activities and desires. And you're absorbed in thought of the Supreme, meaning Krishna. And you're aloof from material association. There you go. That's full detachment. And so it's very important to avoid the association of materialistic people. Very, very important. Then you can develop devotional service with faith, steadiness, and full detachment, and always be absorbed in the thought of the Supreme. And one is aloof from material association. There it is, right? But if we attach to mundane people, and you're always associating with mundane people, you're hearing about their vacation that they took, or how much money they made on the stock market, or how much sense gratification they had in their, uh, on their vacation, or how nice their new house is, or this or that, all these things, right? So, what happens? Uh, you're not aloof from material association, right? You're always interested to hear about what these people do. But when you're aloof from material association, your mind is not distracted by other people's sense gratification. And your own mind is not attracted to sense gratification. You're absorbed completely in thought of Krishna. So that is possible. That is possible. When you're fully engaged in devotional service with faith, steadiness, and full detachment. Detachment from what? Detachment from mundane people. Detachment from sense gratification. It doesn't mean you don't eat or sleep or anything like that, but you're not attached to any type of, let's say, mundane people and mundane sense gratification. You are attached, however, to Krishna, and you are attached to serving the Lord with love and devotion. So, you're not, it's not that, you're in a situation of limbo, right? You're not doing anything. You're not attached to anything. You're sort of like, floating in space. No, you're you have your feet in the ground. You're grounded in devotional service. You have complete faith. You're steady and full of detachment. The detachment from mundane people, mundane sense gratification, so forth. But you're always absorbed in the thought of Krishna. And above all, you're aloof from material association. That's the main thing, to be aloof from material association. Well, yeah, you have to work with co-workers, and you have to, but you have to choose who you associate with. So if you can work with co-workers, but you should associate with devotees.
Hi, Krishna Maharaj.
Yeah.
To Prabhuji's question, let's say you're always only doing deity worship. It's not like you're doing that 24/7. and you're not at, I mean, you don't feel like doing other services.
But you're thinking of it 24/7,
Okay.
right? Because you have to be on time.
Yeah.
So many things have to be right. You know.
So that it's still considered as doing something steadily in Krishna consciousness.
Yes. It's like every day we're hearing, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So we're planning our life so that we set aside some time of the day or twice a day to hear Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So that keeps us aloof from material association. So perfect knowledge can be achieved by a person who is already engaged in devotional service with faith, steadiness, and full detachment, and who is always absorbed in thought of the Supreme. He is aloof from material association. A very simple and short statement, but it is the gist of Krishna consciousness. The perfect knowledge can be achieved by a person who is already engaged in devotional service with faith. 1. Steadiness. 2. And full detachment. 3. And who is always absorbed in thought of the Supreme. 4. He is aloof from material association. So, engaged in devotional service, steadiness, full detachment, and always absorbed in the thought of the Supreme. Then one is aloof from material association. That means even though you are engaged in material activities with materialistic people, but still because of your engaged in devotional service with faith, steadiness, and full detachment, and absorbed in thought of the Supreme Lord all the time, you are aloof from material association. So it doesn't mean that you have to be, let's say, living in a cave and avoiding all association with people. No, I mean, you have to earn a living, so you have to come in contact with people, but you're not associating with them in a way of, going to their parties, watching them eat, horrible things, hearing about their vacations, and so forth. You're not interested in those things. In other words, we do not want to be distracted by mundane talk and mundane, let's say, consciousness of other people. You can politely say, "Oh, excuse me, I have something important to do." Yeah, we'll talk again at another time. Say, "Oh, I don't want to hear any more of your nonsense." You don't want to say something like that. So I have something important I have to do. You have to excuse me. And you walk away from mundane people who are talking nonsense. So one has to become aloof from material association. That includes family members. Well, you might have family members. They might invite you to anniversaries, marriages, things like that. And you have to think very carefully about that. For example, sometimes people will go to a mundane baby shower. But they'll go there and they'll excuse themselves very quickly. So they went, right? They didn't avoid it, but they excused themselves very quickly because they have some very important things to do. Yeah, they have to chant their rounds, they have to do so many other things. So you might go to the baby shower for maybe, I don't know, a few minutes, but you excuse yourself because you say, oh, but I have this very important thing I have to do, excuse me, and you leave. I know people like that. They're invited somewhere, so they go, but they leave right away. They don't stay there. Okay, so if a person is engaged in devotional service with faith, steadiness, meaning you're regulated in doing your service, and full detachment, and who's always absorbed in thought of the Supreme, meaning Krishna, such a person is aloof from material association. So faith, steadiness of service, and full detachment, and always absorbed in thought of the Supreme. Then, even though you're in the material world, even though you're in the association of all kinds of mundane people, you're not influenced by them at all because you have faith, steadiness, and full detachment. And you're always absorbed in the thought of the Supreme. Then you are aloof from material association. So that means that you can be identified as a devotee when you're aloof from material association. That's how you identify a devotee. You're not going to their parties, you're not sitting down with them and making small talk, hearing about their vacation, hearing about the new stock that they bought or anything like that. So it's all a waste of time. And it is not recommended to be in situations like that. Only persons who engage in practical activities of devotional service in full Krishna consciousness can become absorbed in full samadhi, meaning thinking 24 hours a day of Krishna and your relationship of Krishna and your service to Krishna. It is possible for them to see and understand the actual fact of the entire cosmic manifestation and its cause. Well, the actual fact is that everything emanates from Krishna, and everything goes back to Krishna. That's the actual fact of the entire cosmic manifestation, and its cause is Krishna. But unless one has engaged in devotional service with faith, you cannot always be thinking of Krishna, always serving Krishna, always being connected to Krishna. So one has to develop full faith in devotional service. Text 31. My dear respectful mother, so Kardama Muni is speaking to his mom. I have already described the path of understanding the absolute truth, by which one can come to understand the real truth of matter and spirit and their relationship. That's important. to understand the real truth of matter and spirit and their relationship. Well, matter belongs to Krishna, and spirit also belongs to Krishna. And their relationship is they're both used in the service of Krishna. Text 32. Philosophical research culminates in understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After achieving this understanding, when one becomes free from the material mode of nature, meaning goodness, passion, or ignorance, he attains the stage of devotional service, either by devotional service directly or by philosophical research. One has to find the same destination, which is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah, if you do a lot of research, a lot of reading, but you don't come to the conclusion that I should surrender to Krishna, then everything you did was a waste of time. It is said in Bhagavad Gita that after many, many lives of philosophical research, the wise man ultimately comes to the point of knowing that Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is everything. And therefore, he surrenders unto him.
Bahunam Janmanam.
Vanam Janmanamante Gyanavanam Prabhadyante Vasudeva Sarvamiti Mam, whatever.
Samahatma Sudhamana.
Mahatma, yeah. Such serious students in philosophical research are rare because they are very great souls. If by philosophical research one cannot come to the point of understanding the Supreme Person, then his task is not finished. His search in knowledge is still to be continued until he comes to the point of understanding the Supreme Lord in devotional service. Okay. The opportunity for direct touch with the personality of Godhead is given in Bhagavad Gita, where it is also said that those who take to other processes, namely the process of philosophical speculation, mystic yoga practice, have much trouble. After many, many years of much trouble, a yogi or wise philosopher may, that's a big word, may come to him, meaning to Krishna, but his path is very troublesome. Whereas the path of devotional service is easy for everyone. Well, that is true, chanting, dancing, hearing lectures, and engaging in devotional service, yeah. Whereas the path of devotional service is easy for everyone. Yeah, it's easy to have prasadam. It's easy to dance. It's easy to take part in lectures. All these things are easy to do. One can achieve the result of wise philosophical speculation simply by discharging devotional service. And unless one reaches the point of understanding the personality of Godhead by his mental speculation, all his research work is said to be simply a labor of love. A labor of love. Okay, look that up. The meaning of it. It's actually a negative thing. It's not a positive thing. The ultimate destination of the wise philosopher is to merge in the impersonal Brahman. But the Brahman is the effulgence of the Supreme Personality, the Supreme Person. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 14:27, Brahmano hi pratistaham amritasya vyayasya cha. I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is indestructible and is the supreme bliss. The Lord is the supreme reservoir of all pleasure, including Brahman pleasure. Therefore, one who has unflinching faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is said to be already realized in impersonal Brahman and Paramatma, but not necessarily Bhagavan. Okay, so what did we see? What did you look up?
Labor of love.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Is the work that a person does out of passion, devotion, or commitment rather than for financial or material gain. It is typically something that brings, it seems like a positive.
Yeah, they say it in a positive way here.
Faith in what?
They portray it in a positive way only in the definitions. A piece of hard work that you do because you enjoy it and not because you will receive money or praise for it or because you need to do it. Example they gave is he's always working on his car. It's a labor of love.
Always working on what?
On his car. So they give material examples, but
Yeah.
it's better than you're just doing it because you need to or you're going to get money or praise. You still do it because you love to do it.
So here it portrays labor of love as something mundane.
Yes.
All his research work is said to be simply a labor of love. The ultimate destination of the wise philosopher is to merge in the.
There is, I asked, like, is there a negative connotation?
Yeah.
It said it can have negative connotations also when it becomes exhausting and unappreciated. Or it is,
Unappreciated?
yeah,
Yeah.
someone might feel that they're giving everything but not receiving any acknowledgement.
Right.
Maharaj, maybe in this case, they are more attached to the act of doing research. Is that how it's considered as a labor of love? They enjoy doing research. It's not about am I looking to find the real destination or am I enjoying the act of doing research?
Well, in other words, basically it's saying that after doing so much research into spiritual life, if you don't come to the conclusion that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you basically wasted your time. So and that's called the labor of love. Yeah, you love what you're doing, but
Yes, yeah, exactly.
it's not really the purpose of life.
Giving you the right results.
Yeah.
You need.
They give the example of parenting as a
Labor of love.
raising a child with love and care and patience despite the challenges and outcomes.
Yeah. Well, it's a 24-hour a day activity. As soon as you have a new baby, the baby doesn't, go to sleep 8 o'clock and wake up 8 o'clock. The baby wakes up all times when you're supposed to be sleeping. So it's a labor of love to, wake up when the baby's crying and take care of it. Okay, so this is a very nice statement. One can achieve the result of wise philosophical speculation simply by discharging devotional service. And unless one reaches the point of understanding the personality of Godhead by his mental speculation, all his research work is said to be simply a labor of love. So in this sense, labor of love is a negative thing. Yeah, because you can do so much research work and so much mental speculation, but if you don't come to this conclusion that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then it's just been a waste of time or a labor of love. Yeah, you like to work, but everything you do is just mundane. It's not spiritual. So that's why it says one can achieve the result of wise philosophical speculation simply by discharging devotional service. In other words, you don't have to be engaged in wise philosophical speculation. You can simply be engaged in devotional service. And unless one reaches the point of understanding the personality of Godhead by his mental speculation, all his research work is said to be simply a labor of love. In other words, useless, wasted time. All right. So one who has unflinching faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead is said to be already realized in impersonal Brahman and Paramatma. Yeah. So now he's achieved the perfection of spiritual life, and that includes impersonal Brahman and Paramatma. When he becomes when he has unflinching faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that should be our goal. That means we already passed through impersonal Brahman and Paramatma realizations. Now we've come to unflinching faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's not something impersonal now, it's personal. Okay, text 33. Our time is over, isn't it?
Time check.
Huh?
Yeah, right. It's about 40. So maybe there are questions we can ask.
Yeah, are there any questions? I like this statement. It says that one can achieve the result of wise philosophical speculation simply by discharging devotional service. Right. That's a very profound statement. In other words, we don't have to go through philosophical speculation. If we engage in devotional service, one can achieve the result of philosophical speculation simply by discharging devotional service. And unless one reaches the point of understanding the personality of Godhead by his mental speculation, all his research work is said to be simply a labor of love. In other words, he wasted his time. So labor of love has a negative connotation to it. Just like somebody, loves to work on his car. So he's shining the car all the time. He's taking care of it in so many ways. It's a labor of love, but it's basically very mundane thing to do, and it does not help one to understand your relationship with Krishna. So you can feed the homeless people. Right? That's a labor of love. It's basically a very mundane thing to do. But if you give someone prasadam, now that is not simply a labor of love. That's a tangible way for people to make spiritual advancement. Simply giving them food is a labor of love. Giving them Krishna prasadam means that you're giving them something tangible that will help them become Krishna conscious. So some people say, well, I don't see any difference. You have other groups giving out food to homeless people, and you people give food to homeless people. So it's the same thing, but it's not.
Mhm.
We're giving people prasadam. We're giving them a chance to associate with devotees. We're giving them sometimes books or pamphlets all about Krishna. So we're not just giving food. If we just give food, even that is not mundane if it's prasadam. But if it's just food and not prasadam, then the effort is basically a waste of time.
A lot of people ask Maharaj, for our food trucks, not just homeless people, people who have decent money also come and take. So people ask, like, why are you just giving to everybody? You should be giving to more homeless people, right? But they this is spiritual food. They all have,
Everybody's homeless.
everybody is homeless. They lack that. That's why, like, eating this helps
Yeah.
anybody, no
Yeah.
matter what their monetary position is. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes, Hindus who are very rich, they'll come to get
Yeah.
prasadam from the food truck. Now, does that mean they're poor and they're destitute? No, but they're coming to get prasadam, the mercy of Krishna. So here it says, one can achieve the result of wise philosophical speculation simply by discharging devotional service. And unless one reaches the point of understanding the personality of Godhead by his mental speculation, all his research is said to be simply a labor of love. Okay, so the people who engage in mental speculation but never come to understanding Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead is basically a waste of time. So this is another important statement. The ultimate destination of the wise philosopher, that would include Plato, Socrates, and so forth, is to merge in the impersonal Brahman. But that Brahman is the effulgence of the Supreme Lord. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Brahmano hi pratistaham amritasya vyayasya. I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is indestructible and is the supreme bliss. But see, the problem with that is you can fall down from Brahman realization. And people do fall down from Brahman realization. Although it's spiritual, it's eternal, but it's not what you would call the best situation. The best situation is to be engaged always in the devotional service of the Lord, in the association of devotees, regularly hearing the Shastras, regularly engaging and Sankirtan, activities of mercy for the unfortunate people in the world. So if they can have prasadam even once, that will guarantee them at least having a human birth in the next lifetime. So what we need to do is to develop our unflinching faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How do you do that? Some people say, well, I have no faith. So how can I develop faith in God? Well, you have to associate with people who have faith. Then you can develop faith in God. But if you just associate always with mundane people that don't have faith in God, you'll never have faith in God. Okay, so any questions? I like the statement. It says, after many, many years of much trouble, a yogi or wise philosopher may come to him, meaning Krishna. But his path is very troublesome, whereas the path of devotional service is easy for everyone. Yeah, eating prasadam, dancing, and engaging in devotional service, all that is fun. So, whereas the path of devotional service is easy for everyone, one can achieve the result of wise philosophical speculation simply by discharging devotional service. And unless one reaches the point of understanding the personality of Godhead by his mental speculation, all this research work is said to be simply a labor of love. So here, basically, it's saying, look, don't waste your time on mental speculation and research work. Better, one can achieve the result of wise philosophical speculation simply by discharging devotional service. That should be our real vocation in life, being engaged in devotional service for the Lord.
So I asked whether that 1427, the Brahmana Pratishtha, can that be interpreted in any other way? Like, for example, Mayavadis, because here Krishna is saying that he is the foundation, he is the basis for Brahman. So it's so clear, like there's no ambiguity. So I asked like whether there is any way to interpret that Brahman, Krishna is in realization of Brahman.
Yeah.
That's what they say. And here it says no. Bhagavad Gita 1427 cannot be interpreted as saying that Krishna is in Brahman realization. Instead, it clearly states that Krishna is the basis of Brahman, meaning that Brahman, the formless, impersonal aspect of the Absolute Truth, is dependent on Krishna, the Supreme Person, Bhagavan. So the Sanskrit word pratishtha is the key word here, which means foundation, support, or basis. Krishna is saying, I am the pratishtha of Brahman, means Brahman depends on Krishna and not the other way around.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
So this is the verse that we can.
So is this Veda-based chat GPT or the regular chat?
This is regular chat GPT.
Yeah, I think that is a good one to ask this question.
Yeah. Sanskrit sometimes can be misinterpreted or like interpreted differently. That's why I asked this.
Pratishtha means the basis,
Yeah.
the foundation.
The Brahman is based on me, basically. So he is the foundation for Brahman. So that's like the strongest verse to clearly say that Krishna is above Brahman, or that he is the source of the Brahman.
So Krishna, the Lord, is the supreme reservoir of all pleasure, including Brahman real pleasure. Therefore, one who has unflinching faith in the Supreme Personality Godhead is said to be already realized in impersonal Brahman and Paramatma. Okay, so faith in the personality of Godhead, unflinching faith in the personality of Godhead.
Without any doubt.
Right.
Yeah.
So there was this one guy, he was a shoemaker, was dealing with the hide of animals and making shoes. So, but he was actually a devotee. So he was asked, I mean, how come you have faith in Krishna? He said, well, every day I do my shoe work, but I take shelter under this tree, and the tree has fruits, and every day I see the what do you call the fruits, not the fruits, but the seeds. Uh, they sometimes the seeds fall down, right? But they evolve into, but some seeds, that stay on the tree, they develop into very nice fruits. So he said, this this is the mercy of Krishna, right? That he can make a tree that produces thousands of seeds, and many of those seeds develop into very nice fruits. So, therefore, this is the mercy of the Lord. Can you manufacture a seed in a factory? No. So, yeah, they can manufacture nuts and bolts, but they can't manufacture a seed. So it is a miracle how these seeds come about. And it's because of Krishna's transcendental energies. Therefore, one seed is worth more money than all the manufactured products in the world, because one seed can eventually give you many seeds. So, when it says, I'm the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is indestructible and is the supreme bliss. The Lord is the supreme reservoir of all pleasure, including Brahman pleasure. Therefore, one who has unflinching faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead is said to be already realized in impersonal Brahman and Paramatma. So you don't have to go through all these different steps. If you just come to Krishna consciousness with unflinching faith in the Lord and engage regularly in devotional service, you have already realized in impersonal Brahman and Paramatma. Haribol. And that's what Prabhupada was doing. He brought the devotees directly to pure devotional service. So that includes Brahman, Paramatma, everything. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai.